Hello everybody and welcome to Senior Susie Stamps. Today I thought maybe you might be in the mood to make some all occasion cards with me using some 6x6 paper. I've got several examples today, so stay tuned for that. In fact, why don't we look at a few of those before we even get started, because I thought I'd give you a little history on where this card started. I ordered some Lawn Fawn dies, and this happens to be a sequins mix. Let me see if I can see a number on it. It's LF3515 sequins mix die. And when I got my order in, I ordered several of the dies with it. They sent me 3 pieces of paper, and they were all plaid on one side, and one of them was plaid diagonal on the back side, and the other one was pears, and the third one was bananas. And I thought, what am I going to do with those? Well, I reverted to my absolute favorite way to cut 6x6 paper, and let me show you what that is. I'm using some paper by Penny Black today, and it's called Beau Jardin, and it's a gorgeous paper pack. I don't know if this is still available or not. I've had it for several years, and I'm doing my best trying to use up what I have this year and reduce my footprint in the studio a little bit, because this move has really hit home with me that I have way too much stuff. So, at any rate, you'll be seeing me use a lot more things this year in ways to use up paper. And so, my first cut on a 6x6, when I want to maximize what I'm doing, is to cut it at 5 1/4, paying attention to the direction of the pattern if there is one. Now these 3 pieces that I chose to use today don't have any direction to their pattern, so it doesn't make any difference. And I could go ahead and cut these all 3 at one time if I wanted to, but I'm a bit of a klutz when I do that. And it doesn't always come out the way I want it to. So I'm going to cut my 3/4 inch strip off first, and then I'm going to turn and cut it at 4 inches. So my large piece then is an A2 size layer at 4 inches by 5 1/4. And this is 2 inches by 5 1/4. And this is 3/4 of an inch by 6. So I'm going to cut all 3 of those pieces just like that. Okay, so there's all my pieces. I'm going to put my cutting board away, and let's look at some of these cards, because this is about as basic as you can get with that cut. Now the first cut on this one, I cut to 5 1/4 instead of, I cut it at 5 1/2 instead of 5 1/4, but normally this would be just a little shorter. I went ahead and used it as is. I made my embellishments, and I like to do that frequently with paper that I don't have any embellishments that come with it, because I have a lot of ink and I can do, a lot of fun things with my own stuff, and I think you all probably can too. Now, this is part of that strip that's right here, and then I stamped on the inside. This stamp set is one from Gina K that I had for quite a while. In fact, I'm not sure but what someone sent this to me. Honestly, I can't remember, but it's a nice sympathy set, and I'm completely out of sympathy cards, and this blue color just spoke sympathy card to me. So there's card number 1. Now, card number 2 was the pears, and so I pulled out some green washi tape that kind of went with the green on the pears, and then I cut these pears out of a piece of green paper and inked them and cut some leaves and what have you, and I made an anniversary card out of it. What a pair, happy anniversary. So that'll go in my stash for this year. And the third one with the bananas, I happen to have a drawer in my studio that's titled Hang In There, and it has hanging things in it, like hanging monkeys and hanging birds and what have you. And the Hang In There sentiments, I think I've got 2 or 3 of them in there, but I happen to have these adorable monkeys in my stash. that I got who knows when from the Dollar Tree. So I made it into a get well card, quit monkeying around and get well soon. And I thought it was just adorable. Now I did use a little extra scrap on the back just because I had it. Let me show you some more because they use the same cut, absolutely the same cut. Here's your 4-inch piece and your 2-inch piece, and here's the strip inside. All I did with this one was to put it on a 2 1/4 inch punch after I glued it together, before I glued it to the card base. And there's the first one. Here's the second one. Now this has some Love from Lizzie peel-offs, and it's the same concept. Now on the back of these, I took this circle and put on that card, and I took the other one and put on this card. So all those little pieces are completely used up then, and I don't have to find something to do with them in my stash. But I made these flowers out of 2 different punches, actually 3 if you count the center, and I left them kind of blank on the inside for writing a thank you note when I need them. Now let's see, here's another one, and this uses the 2-inch strip, 2 of them actually. I cut it in half to a 1-inch strip on either side and just laid it down. This is one of the narrow strips. These are some Love from Lizzie peel-offs either side of it. The stamped image, which I colored with a pencil. I don't often use my colored pencils, and I'm going to try to do a little bit more of that this year. And then here are some of those sequins and some other flower dies that I got recently. And the back, I used another little piece of that paper as well. Okay, so we're getting a little more complicated here now. This is a flower that I made out of the Stampin' Up! Balloon punch. Here's the smaller one and here's the larger one. I just punched 5 of them on some paper that I made with inks that corresponded with the inks that are here. I cut the leaves out by hand in some leaf pattern and tried to follow a little bit of Penny Black's flowers that way, and it opens up, hang on, it opens up into a nice card where you can use a lot of paper that way. One thing I did was to put an extra strip over here so that if I wanted to, I could go ahead and put a little gift card down in there. I just made a little simple pocket, put a little piece of trim on the outside, but I had these little pieces of paper left out of that 3/4 inch strips that were only 1 1/4 inches long. So I thought, well, I can make a bookmark out of that, and that's exactly what I did. And so here's where it will live until I'm ready to send this card to whoever gets it. Nothing on the back yet, I forgot to stamp it. And then here's yet another step up. Made my little flower that kind of goes with this little flower right here. And I used part of this little 3/4 inch piece for my belly band front. And I blacked around the edges of the flower and the leaves just like what's in the paper. And then here's the inside of that card. And I have another little bookmark here. There's no little pocket on this one, but I have a cute little clip that goes with it. Nice little spot for a note, and using up some extra paper, and again just some handmade flowers. So let's get ready and get started to make a card today using these 3 that I've cut. So my cut on the cardstock was 5.5 by 10 3/4, and I scored it at 4 1/4 and at 8 1/2. So I'm going to go ahead and fold that. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim just a tiny, tiny bit off of this because it binds. See how that binds up in there just a little bit? Well, it won't fold flat for you to go through the mail, so I'm just going to cut a little sliver off of that. And when we get to putting whichever piece we put on the front on this card, we're going to cut just a tiny little sliver off of that as well. But look, let me show you exactly about what I'm going to cut off. It's about a 32nd of an inch. It's really just not much at all. And now Let's see how it works. See how nice and flat that goes? So there you have it. So what we need to decide on is what we're going to put on the front. And I like that one. I think I'll put maybe this one here and this piece over here, and then I'll put this piece on here, and I think this piece on there. So let's get that all glued on, and then we'll figure out what we're doing next. I'm going to use some tape runner today out of my stash. I have about 40 of these from some classes that I used to have, and so I'm trying to get things used up. This year my goal is to decrease my studio footprint by 10%. So 1 out of 10 things needs to go away. And I don't know whether I'll accomplish that or not, but that's my goal. Let's see, I think I'll put this one on the front, and then we'll embellish it with some flowers that I've made over here. But you can see how, if you want to be conservative and just use one piece of 6x6 paper, you can make a very nice card. Or if you want to use 3 pieces of paper because you've got too much supplies in your stash, this cut also works. And I forgot to trim that back, didn't I? Well, we're going to let that one go today and realize that it was a mistake, and that's okay. So I'm going to put this one over here. Several years ago, I took some paper to one of the office places, I don't know, Office Depot or something, and had it cut. Well, you know, they didn't cut it quite right. So I've been kind of struggling with what to do with that, and I'm going to try to use some of it for my inside panels, and it means I just have to cut them again, but it doesn't take but just a minute to do that. So let me show you what I'm talking about here in a second, after I get this glued down completely. And we're going to put this one on the inside. These are the ones that I'm talking about, and they're lightweight. These are possibly 60 pound. They have just a tiny little bit of texture to them, and but they're not cut quite right. So let me figure out what the layer is that we need to cut. And these are just a little over 4 3/4. So I'm going to cut it to 4 3/4 so that it's the right length. 4 3/4 would be 3/4 of an inch off, so that means that this side should be 3 1/2 then. So 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. You can see how much more I cut off of that side. And we'll put that in here for our sentiment. So let me go ahead and put that down. And I'll either stamp or write a handwritten note on this one later. There we go. And now we need to decide, are we going to do it this way? And I kind of like that. And put something white on the outside, or how we're going to adjust for this front of the card. I have some things that I made. Let's figure out what we're going to do with the front of the card. I have some little flowers made that go with these, and some leaves. And I punched some little yellow dots because this one has little yellow dots on it. But then I got to remembering my sequins die, so I cut some sequins out for us. But I think I'm going to go ahead and put maybe a little oval on the front of that. I have several oval cutting dies. I think maybe I might like to have a little scalloped edge on that. Let's see which one we want. That might be just about right. Okay, well, let's use that one. I'm getting scraps out of my large white scrap drawer rather than using that long piece, because these are smaller than that one was. There we go. I got a little spot off of my cutter plate. I'll have to look at that one after a while and see what's causing that. So now I need a sentiment, and I think I'll make this one into a thank you card and just put "with thanks" on it. I think I used my word stamp kit today for the with thanks. I think I've shown you all this before, but if you haven't seen it, this is just words. And so there's with, and where's thanks? Thanks is over here. There we go. These are magnetized, but for no more than we're doing today, I'm going to go ahead and just use these by hand. And I'm just going to get a small scrap of paper and just go ahead and stamp my with thanks out. I got the word stamps from eBay, so I don't really have a good source for them. You just have to look for them, and if you ever run into a set, I highly recommend getting it because they're very, very useful. Okay, got that done, and then I'm just going to cut these out with my little cutter bee scissors. And because they're just straight cuts, these are really, really easy stamps to use and to cut out. And then what I usually do is to go around the outside edge with a black pen, a black marker, so that I get rid of that little bit of white that shows. So let me get that done, and then we'll be ready to finish this card really quickly. Because this is heavyweight cardstock, I want to go ahead and burnish this down with my bone folder so that it'll make a nice fold here. There we go. That's going to be a little better now. And because I decided to put this top layer on the outside, I didn't really need to trim that, but it's going to be all right. I'm going to glue this down flat, and then we're just going to build our flowers on top of it and see how it turns out. For the leaves, I didn't have any gray paper at hand, so I just used my marker and drew across my white paper, and then I cut my leaves out of the gray marked paper. Easy to do. And of course, I'm going to use my little sequins, but you could just as well do some little punch outs here for these little flowers. Now on these, I've shaped them by hand. What I did was to moisten them up just a little bit, but you can see how closely they resemble these little flowers, and I just used an old Stampin' Up! Punch. This one with the 5 petals, because these flowers have 5 petals, and then this is the leaf punch that I used for the little gray leaves. So let's get this put together. And I'm going to start with my flowers a little bit and try to get my sentiments placed, and then I'll start gluing things down. There we go, I think that's fine. And I'm going to go ahead and glue these sentiments down flat because the flowers have so much dimension. I don't think the card needs any more. There. Now I'm going to start with the center one and move my way around. I think I'll stay on top of the oval. I'll move that one up just a little bit. And I'm just putting a good dollop of glue there in the middle of these flowers. And then I'm going to try to nestle them up together just a touch so that they don't look like they're all stuck on there by themselves. There we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and glue these little leaves on. And I'm just going to put some glue on and slip them up underneath where I think they'll be fine. Try to get them to come out of the middle of the flower, or the center, I guess, of the flower a little bit. And then maybe we'll have one more leaf. Coming out of the center of this one. And kind of going down that way a little bit. There we go. And I think I'm going to go ahead and put some of my little sequins around. I think I'll use my little jewel picker for that. And the little center came out of that one. So let me see if I can pick the little centers out of the rest of these. May not be able to. There. So there's the card finished. And so now we have 3 strips and a 2-inch piece to use. Let's see what we can do with that one. And I think I'll get a regular card base. I've about run out of everything in the studio these days. So I'm having to stop and redo card bases and all kinds of stuff. So I'm thinking maybe this one in the middle and these off to the side, and then maybe this little strip in the center there. And I think what I'll do with this card is mount it up onto another panel. And I have these little panels over here, and I'm going to cut them down to so that I have a uniform border. And that one we cut to 5, so I'm going to cut this at 4 3/4 and just glue them down. Now I am going to go ahead and use my grid lines here to find the center and place my panel in the center first, just so that the borders will be even. There we go. And then we'll put these little panels on either side. And here's a nice card base ready to pull out and use at a moment's notice then, as soon as I get it finished. And it uses up the rest of this little piece of 6x6 paper, because I'm going to put this one on the inside. So this one I'm just going to put up on the front of the card. And have it ready to finish at a moment's notice. This one I'm going to cut to 4 inches and glue that right across the bottom of this inside here. So for 3 6x6 pieces of paper, they're going in the bin. I've started throwing away a little bit more paper than I used to, because it's just not worth keeping so many little tiny scraps anymore. But this is a very usable card front. You can do whatever you want to with it. And this little card uses a lot of paper, has a nice little spot for a sentiment there, and then here's the rest of the cards. Back again. That one. This one. Those are the big fancy ones. And just a great way to use up 6x6 papers, whether they're in a paper pack with just one, if they're in a group of just one, or if you can get several pieces out of a paper pack that coordinate to use, you can do them that way. So I hope this helps get you in the frame of mind to make some all occasion cards for 2025. And I hope y'all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'll see you then. Bye, everybody.